Hello, fifth graders. Your fifth grade teachers are super excited to present lessons to you over the next few weeks. Sometimes you'll hear from me, Mrs. Hibbard, and other times you'll hear from Mr. Bonani, Mrs. Foltz, or Mrs. Garapi. You might even be lucky enough to hear from Miss Cochran and Miss Rickard. So buckle up, get ready for a new adventure. Welcome, fantasy readers. Today is the day that you start learning about fantasy. Some of you are already avid fantasy readers, while others of you are just unsure about this genre. You just aren't sure about the dragons and the dwarfs and the epic quests when the world is in peril. Let's start to begin to think about why you'd even want to learn about this genre. Well, there's some pretty great reasons. First, the stories are incredible. They are stories of wild, dangerous, romantic tales where the fate of mankind rests in the decision of the main characters. Everything is more important, more intense, more vivid in fantasy stories. A second reason is when you study, you are really studying about the human condition. The stories are never really about elves or hobbits. They're more about the struggles of good versus evil. They're about the power and how power corrupts. They're about the quest to be better than we are. They're about how even the smallest of us can have a great effect on the world. And third reason, which I think is a pretty big one, if you become a powerful reader of fantasy, you are more likely to become a powerful reader of all texts. Fantasy novels are very complicated. You have to figure out where the story takes place, what kind of world it is, and who has the power there. What are the rules? You will read narratives that will take you and stretch you over many novels. You will read hundreds, if not thousands of pages. You will emerge in these stories as the characters change. And I want that for you. I want that for all of you. I want you to embark on these adventures that make your mind spin. I want you to feel the release when you escape into a mythical world and magic happens. I want you to find stories that spread over into many books that will keep you up at night, fill the corners of your life with secrets. You may not come out of this study as a fantasy fanatic or a Dungeons and Dragons player, but I think that you will know more about this beautiful wild genre. I hope you will have more insight on what it means to be human. Your fifth grade teachers really want this for you. We want you to emerge as powerful readers that can tackle these complicated texts. I hope you want that for yourself. So in order to become a sophisticated reader, there's lots of things you need to know. So today, I want to teach you that as fantasy readers, your first task will be to figure out not just where the story happens, but what kind of place it is. One way you could do this is by investigating the clues about the time period and the important magical elements. You can do this by using the covers of your books, blurbs, details from the beginning of the story, and doing some research. Experienced readers and experienced fantasy readers expect something about the settings. Often fantasy stories are set up in the medieval world, full of swords, horses, castles, dragons, and so forth, like in Lord of the Rings or Narnia. A second common setting is the futuristic world, full of reminders of the kind of world that we live in now, but it's different, often troubled, like what you found in the Hunger Games. And the third type of setting is the ordinary world that seems like everything is normal, but then gradually there's an infiltration of magic. So there is a blending of what you know currently, and it's sprinkled with the magical elements, like in Harry Potter. This is a great example of this type of world. Researching the setting. Knowledgeable fantasy readers know to grab clues right away about what kind of place that they are in. Sometimes it is a little tricky though, because sometimes the story might not just start off right away in a magical world. It could, but doesn't always. So often a fantasy story will start off in the ordinary place in the here and now, but then the characters are transported, like in Narnia, when Peter, Edmund, and Lucy all walk through the enchanted wardrobe and they get into the magical kingdom. Whereas in Harry Potter, Harry starts out in the ordinary world, but the ordinary world becomes magical. He doesn't go into another kingdom. He still lives in London in the modern world, but magic enters that world and transforms it. Readers, we're going to practice this with a book called The Paperback Princess. We are going to research the setting. Make sure that you look at the cover of all of your books and the blurbs in the back of your books. They will always help you with clues. So let's look at this book. What is the setting? Just from the front cover of the book, we can gather some clues. There's a picture of a dragon on the cover. That's pretty obvious. The girl is wearing a crown. She lives in a castle. The picture in the book looks like it's from the Middle Ages, maybe even medieval times. A dragon. Dragons are magical creatures, and it enters the story. Well, Mrs. Foltz will be reading this story to us in our next ELA lesson. So here's your job. You're going to select a book from either Epic, Overdrive, or a fantasy book that you might have at home. There is a tutorial to remind you on how to log into Overdrive and Epic if you need it. It's attached to this lesson in your Google Classroom. I want you to fill out the Google form with your book's title and author, and then you'll submit that to your teacher. Do your best to read 20 minutes a day. I have a feeling you'll want to read more and more as you get into your books. Think about what are the clues that are in your book that can tell us more about this setting. I want to give a special thanks to Mrs. Stoll for collaborating on this lesson with us as a 5th grade team. We are excited to take on this exciting adventure into fantasy. I hope you are too. Good luck, boys and girls. Off you go. Happy reading.